All right, another edition of Riding Home. This time it's just Matt and I. We wanted to talk about the 2007 Blackout game. And this is something that Matt wrote about over on Dog Post. I'm going to get up on the screen here just in a second. Someone had a just fabulous picture of Matthew Stafford. But, I didn't think it was that great of an image. But anyway, at the time. Hey, Matt, you did a good job talking to a lot of folks. What are your memories of that game, Georgia and Auburn? And then also, what did you learn in writing this?
Yeah, I remember the week leading up to it, right? There was just speculation everywhere. The whole town was buzzing about wearing black jerseys, and I wrote about the team getting better and better as the season went along. They had two losses early to South Carolina and Tennessee, teams that they probably would have beat if they played later in the year. And I think the players that I spoke to said the same thing. So this is 2 weeks after the big Florida massive win down in Jacksonville, where they run onto the field, this and that, and I got a good story about that coming up later this year when they play the Gators. But, this team was rolling and there was a buzz in the air. There was an excitement about this team that was playing like one of the best teams in the country. And a lot of the seniors wanted to do something special. Marcus Howard spoke with me. He said, it was just a different year. Mark Rick was letting us kind of do whatever we wanted as players. And he opened up a little more and he was, okay with the idea. He told me that only the seniors knew about it. Marcus Washington, a
Mhm.
defender, that was on that team. I spoke with him as well. He said he had no idea when he was getting to the stadium if they were or not. He said Coach Rick was telling them all week, we're staying with tradition, staying with tradition. So a lot of the players were not on the same page, but the seniors were. And I remember first play of the game, Keelan Johnson, who was a captain, picked off that pass. Stadium
Mhm.
was going nuts. It was, everyone was wearing black, and it was a nice, clean kind of look. I thought the jerseys looked great. And if you were there in the stadium, it's something that you'll never forget. It's something you talk about with all your Georgia buddies. And it was a special moment, Dean. I know you were there on the field,
Mhm.
obviously taking the pictures. Kind of, what were your takeaways from that game? What do you remember most?
Well, the biggest thing, I want to actually go backwards a little bit because Mark and I had talked earlier that year about Georgia's uniforms, and I just straight up asked him, not that I knew anything, because he probably thought I did. Did you hear Mark Rick just then? I was playing it in my headphones. Did you hear
No,
that?
I didn't.
Okay, okay,
No.
good. Um, he was he was very worried that he wanted his very specific quote was, when people see Georgia on TV, I want them to know that it was Georgia on TV. And that week, um, that there were a couple things. First of all, going towards the game on River Road, the way that we kind of wiggle our way to the stadium, there were a lot of people with black on, and I really didn't anticipate that. I thought the students would do it, and all of the students did it. And then secondly, the night before I'd gone to see AJ Harmon play, and Fernando Velasco had also gone to Jefferson County. It's not Jefferson County. Anyway, I can't remember the name of the town, but he said that he and Fernando had spoken, and AJ told Fernando that and AJ Harmon was a big recruit, came out of Georgia and
Yeah.
Clemson for him, and he told Fernando that if they wore black against Auburn, that he would come to Georgia. As it turns out, he did. So there they are. They start warming up. There's a particular buzz in the that week. Blair Walsh, I believe the people there were Blair Walsh, Jeremy Longo, and AJ Harmon, but definitely Blair and definitely um, who did I say?
Fernando,
No, uh,
uh,
Blair Walsh,
Jeremy
Jeremy
Longo.
Longo. I can't believe a span of 10 seconds, I
Yeah.
forgot Jeremy's name.
Bulldog legend, Jeremy Longo. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: they're in there, and the lights go out, and when they turn the lights back on in the old locker room, there are all the black jerseys, and there's this palpable scream and yell, I guess, from the players. So I was underneath the stadium, and I told Wes, who was shooting at the time, be ready, with the camera, because they very well could come out in black. And I remember, of course, I was one of the first people to see them in black, and it was hard to get your bearings straight because uh, it just looked so different. And then they turned the corner, and the cheerleaders saw him, and the cheerleaders started going nuts. And
Yeah,
that game, I've talked with David Ching, who's a former reporter at ESPN and the Athens Banner Herald at Columbus, etc., a lot about this game. And what people forget about this game is this was a tight game until the fourth quarter, and
yeah,
Georgia started just really playing well in the fourth.
yeah. I think looking back on it, everyone remembers No Sean Marino dancing on the sidelines to Soldier Boy. That was a big deal
Yep.
back then. But Matthew Stafford hit Muhammad Massaquoi, I think, for a long game in
Yes.
the fourth quarter. No Sean juked a couple of Tigers out of their shoes. So uh, as the game went on, they started playing better and better. And you just had a feeling that Georgia was going to win the game. I do think Auburn put up a good fight. I think the final score was like 45-20. Didn't look all that great, but you're right. Auburn was actually hanging in there. And I think
Oh yeah.
maybe had like a 4-point lead early in the third quarter or something like
Yeah.
that. So it was a tight ball game for a little bit there. But those guys were ready and they were playing at that time. They were and they were very confident. Marcus Howard told me, he said, if we played South Carolina or Tennessee that week, we'd have destroyed them. And he went to talk about the game against Hawaii. They knew they were going to win that game too, and
Right.
talked a little bit off the record just about that team and how good they were. But they were, just a little young on the offensive line and on defense a little bit. But they were playing with confidence. And he said, when we saw those black jerseys, like we knew we were going to go out and whoop them. Again, it was a fight, but just the atmosphere in the stadium. Everyone will say it's one of the loudest and craziest Sanford's ever been.
Yeah.
The black jerseys did not work out well. The next year, haven't really seen them a ton in big game situations. Then maybe Kirby will bring them out at some point. Doesn't really seem like he's up to do it anytime soon. But I know the players who are on that team looking back on it, that's one of the things they remember most was that blackout with the black jerseys, especially the seniors. He said Donnell Ellerby went out there. He obviously knew they were going to do the black jerseys, and he made sure to wear a black sleeve out there during warm-up. So a lot of good stuff in the story as well if you head over to Dog Post and read the inside scoop there.
I'll put a link to it down below, but let me just recap this 2007 team. Now, they beat Oklahoma State to start the season. That was a pretty big win for Georgia, actually. And then the loss to Carolina was somewhat inexplicable. That was, to me, Georgia was a young team. South Carolina played really well. But that team beat ranked Alabama on the road, ranked Florida, ranked Auburn, ranked Kentucky, and obviously ranked Hawaii. The behind the scenes story that no one cares about, but I do. I only have three full size images from that blackout game. When I had not moved the images off of my laptop quick enough to my backup. And at the time, I was doing a magazine every single month. So I had three images of it. One of Matthew, which has become a very famous image. Georgia actually used that to raise money soon thereafter. The picture of Matthew, which I thought was not a great picture. But
No,
had I not sent it to
yeah,
them, that picture would not exist. I have a picture of the entire stadium in black. And then I have that picture of Mark Richt, which is probably the best image of that day. What happened was my computer fell out, and all the images that were on there just I couldn't recover the hard drive, and so all those images are gone. I have smaller images of many of them, but I did a YouTube. That was one of the first times I really used YouTube. Was the 2007 Auburn blackout, and it was just to show the pictures. That game has and always will have significant meaning in at Georgia. Years later, I was in Mark's office. I can't remember why, but that was something that he had was the images from the blackout. It was a time when Georgia was as hot a team in the country as there was. But Matt, the problem was their hot streak spanned two seasons, not one. And
yeah,
that was the problem. But as a cultural event in Athens, in Georgia history, in Athens, I guess there's not a lot bigger than the blackout. And I will add that Georgia has since worn the black jerseys a few times. They've only lost once in the black jerseys, which was the Alabama game in
Yeah.
2008.
8.
Yeah, but then they've won in them. They've won a major bowl game, the Peach Bowl, in black jerseys since. So it's not the jerseys; it's how you play in them. But I thought I was, Marcus won, and you'll talk about this, I guess, later in the year. But Marcus was the MVP of the Sugar Bowl that year. He absolutely killed.
Yeah.
That's the wrong term to use. He absolutely
Yeah.
tortured Cole Brennan the entire time during that game. I remember Carter Strickland was the AJC reporter, and I asked him if he thought Hawaii could beat Georgia, and he said, "In no way can Hawaii beat Georgia." And that team, Thomas Brown, that was his last game, and Hawaii, I think, was chirping a little bit during the week. And so when Georgia was out there and scored touchdowns, they were doing the hang loose sign, making fun of the Hawaii team. But and that's another story for another time. But that was a very big event in Hawaii history. Um, but that blackout, I
Yeah.
mean, what do you recall? I don't know if you were there, if you were watching it on TV, but it played great on TV. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, 100%. I was watching with family. I was a senior in high school.
Oh, I
But
bet that was a major
yeah,
thing for you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I wish I watched with buddies instead, but it was,
sure.
I remember watching with my dad and my aunts and my mom and everyone, and they were going nuts too. But it was just a special season because, we had a good time watching the Florida game 2 weeks prior and
I
couldn't
know.
believe that crazy game. But,
It was so
but
unlike Georgia to
yeah,
do what happened against the Gators, and then 2 weeks later, people don't people don't remember this, but it was considered very risky at the time to wear the black jerseys. Like for kind of sounds stupid to be honest, but there was a lot of angst about that at the time.
yeah. Again, he said Rick was turning more and more into a player's coach at that point.
Right.
Let more music in the locker room, just the little things. And he said the team really bonded as he opened up a little bit more as a coach and let them do their different things. Marcus Howard would kind of went on and on about that.
That was an older
Um,
team, by the way. That was
yeah, yeah.
Keelan, Thomas, Marcus Howard,
Fernando.
Fernando. I
Yeah,
was just going to say Fernando.
yeah,
There were a lot of older players on there, and the younger players, No Sean and Matthew, were good players. And so
yeah.
they just kind of moved in there. But that was an older team, that '07 team, and it was
They went
just
into the next season number one. I mean,
number
that's
one in the
how
country.
good they finished 2007. But it's
But they
clear
were a
that
different
the leaders,
defense.
the guys
They were a
that you
different
just said,
defense.
yeah, were missed in that '08 season. But
No
yeah,
question.
um, just a fun game and a fun year. And I mean, if there was a college football playoff at the end of 2007, Georgia would have been right there with everyone. They were playing extremely well, and guys like Marcus Howard, big dog post guy, coaches at Alpharetta High School, great guy, sounds just like DMX. Talking to him, great guy. He
Let me
really
tell
helped
you
out a
a
lot.
very quick Marcus Howard story. Marcus grew up in a very isolated part of South Carolina. Um, when he got to Georgia, he was a linebacker, and it really kind of wasn't working, at least not as well as everybody had wanted. And I will tell this story, and John Favres can call me a liar if he wants to. That's fine. But after the Sugar Bowl, we were sitting there, and Coach Fab said, and I think I'm cool saying this now. He said nobody wanted him, but I did at defensive end, and there was the work had been done by Marcus and Coach Fab too, but by Marcus to elevate him to MVP status of a major bowl game. And Marcus, I think, had a cup of coffee in the league for a while. How long was he in the NFL? Do you know?
I think he played for the Colts for a
It
few
was, it was
years.
the Colts,
I
yeah.
think he had plenty of speed off the edge at
Right.
the college level. I think he has at the NFL level, but right now he trains some of the best high school defenders in the state. Some college players in the offseason come back and work with him. So he was always technically sound, fundamentally sound, knew what he was doing, and now he's one of the top trainers in the state of Georgia.
You know, his ability to get around the corner on guys was
Yeah.
hard to
He takes
and
care of his body. Dude looks like the Hulk
oh, I'm
right now.
sure.
I mean, he
No,
is.
I don't
He's
have I have no
chiseled.
doubt about it. Well, I mean that I have not seen all those guys, but I mean Thomas,
Yeah.
I'm sure Matthew, we still see. I mean, I've seen Thomas on TV. He's jacked as usual, but that was not a good team. That was a great team, and it was kind of robbed of a chance to win the national championship because of its circumstances at the time. Now, but anyway, that blackout game was a cultural event in a way that, and we're still talking about it nearly 20 years later. Shows how big a deal it was. Any final thoughts about the blackout?
It's fun to think about every time Auburn comes to Georgia. They haven't won in Athens since 2005.
Yeah,
So they've lost 7 times in a row between the hedges. Now break could come Saturday, but every time Auburn comes to town, it is a big deal. And
it
it's
is.
just a game that you think of every time, this week happens.
All right, thanks, Matt, for remembering the 2007 blackout.